Today, my guest is Natalie DeMeis, the Vice President of Business Development at Barnum Financial Group. Natalie has extensive experience in employee benefit space and a deep understanding of Medicare, rules, and provisions. She joins us today to share her knowledge and talk with us about her career in the industry. I hope you enjoy. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. All right, Natalie, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins today. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. So we have a lot to cover today, but I always like to start with the beginning. So how did you find your way to the financial service industry? Tell us how you got started.
From the industry, I have a legal background and I ended up being employed. I came over to MetLife to write contracts and certificates. Most boring job in the whole wide world.
I can imagine.
And then I met Paul Blanco and he said, you got to come work for me. And
But you ducked me for a while.
It took a little while. It took a little courting. Yes.
So when you say you have a legal background, what do you mean?
I went to school for legal studies.
I probably knew that, but I never really realized that.
Yeah. So I have a legal background.
And you've read contracts all day?
I wrote them. I read them. I fought with the insurance commissioners. It was not fun.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I didn't really know that. Okay.
Yeah.
That explains some of your skill sets, though, that you have today. So what I really thought today would be is, besides your journey a little bit, is you've been in the business, 20 plus years. You've been doing a great job. You've wore a lot of different hats over your career. But probably 10 years ago, you started on this journey in the Medicare space.
Right.
And, so first off, why did you do that? What drew you to that? And we've been hearing for all those years that, these baby boomers this baby boom thing was happening. And now it's happened. Like it's 11,000 people a day plus are turning 65. So what made you get into that space?
It was really by accident.
Okay.
So we have a large group benefits division. And when those employees were retiring, the benefits person would say, hey, can you help them? Can you help them figure out what's going on with Medicare? So we started doing it onesie, twosie, and then it became really a business for us because there was such a need. Education. I just got off the phone with someone that he said 100 people told him the wrong information. And he says, can you give it to me in writing? I said, of course. So I found out where on Medicare.gov and I gave them the right information. So there's so much misleading information out there that they really needed a resource. So we became that resource.
Well, it's interesting. Let's go a little deeper on that. When someone is retiring, I have not been in the field for 30 years, but when someone's retiring, and I coach a lot of advisors, especially the top ones, I hear that the client gets a little paralyzed when they have to make these decisions with their Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, when they're leaving their employer, when the advisor's really focused on helping them with the retirement part. But it seems like sometimes this comes first. And
it definitely is. I've worked with advisors where they say, I have a prospect, but they want to talk to you first. So I talk to them. And then really based on the education and what I do with them, they end up becoming financial planning clients with us. So sometimes even the opposite, I go in first and then they say, yes, I want to work with you. Well, think about it. When you're young, you're on your parents' plan. You get your first job, you're on that plan. You've never had to make a decision about your health insurance. So This is the first time in your life. And there's lots and lots of decisions and choices to be made that you have to make a choice. And you don't want to make the wrong choice. You want to make sure if you need care, you can get that care. You want to be able to get it where you want to get it. What's important to you.
Like, what do the clients actually say? Do they say, oh my God, I don't know what to do, or
every single one.
I've gotten it right. They just sit there
every
and
single one.
I'm just trying to put myself in those shoes with, even though I'm in the industry, very little knowledge of the rules and regs that go along with that. So they get in this mindset of almost overwhelmed with so much information coming at them between social media, TV, mail. Like, am I painting the right picture?
Yeah, it is so overwhelming. I have our own advisors, advisors that are referring their clients to me. And they finally said, let me talk to you. What's going on about me? Find out they didn't realize they needed to do certain things by a certain time. And they were now responsible for a penalty for the rest of their life because they didn't do it correctly. So the education is so important because the government likes to penalize if you don't do things when they want you to do them. So it's that education of when you have to do it and to do it correctly.
And for a client, as they're thinking about their financial well-being, right? And they're putting stuff in place, like they're probably buying, I'm stereotyping, but a lot of clients are thinking, once I get married, I get life insurance. Once I have kids, I get more. Once I, get my first job, hopefully they start saving for retirement, but really update that along the way. And I think of this like timeline of all these events that a client has to do with their insurances and their protections and their investments. When should they start thinking about Medicare and like planning and doing all that? Like, when is the right time? Is it right when you retire? Right when you turn 65? Like, when is it?
The one thing people don't understand is when you need to enroll in Medicare, they're going to look at your tax return from 2 years earlier. So you should be talking to your CPA, your tax preparer, to find out what the impact of filing married jointly or filing married singly, separately, the impact it can do for the cost Medicare will be for you. That's what the biggest surprise is. We're doing a lot of financial planning. So people are saving. And so many people think Medicare is free. Educated people think Medicare is free. Medicare is not free. There's a cost associated with it. And the more money you've made over the years, it could cost you a lot more money to enroll in Medicare.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So
if you're thinking you're going to retire at 65, you want to make sure when you do your tax return 2 years before that, that you're recognizing that. So at least you're educated. So I think we have to do a better job educating what the cost would be. So that's one piece of it, the financial piece of it. The other piece of it is usually 6 months, 3 months before they're looking to retire. What I do is when I sit down with a person, I'll walk them through the process. Do you have Part A? Do you have Part B? And we go through the whole process of enrolling in Medicare Part A and Part B first. So that could be even an overwhelming task for people. So we'll do that. And then once they have their A and B in place, then I educate them and let them know what their options are for secondary insurance.
And that all depends on what they're getting from their employer or what not they're getting and all that other stuff that they have to think through.
Correct. Yeah, because you could be 65 and still working. You could be 75 and still working. So you just have to understand what the rules are, because the rules are, do you work for an employer that has less than 20 employees? Do they have more than 20 employees? What you do is different based on that situation.
And a question on that is, if I'm a client and I retire at 65 and I do, Part A and B, and then you tell me where I have to, fill some gaps along the way. Do I have to go through this again at 66 and 67 and 68? Every year I have to come back and re-talk about it, or is it just set it and forget it?
It is not a set it and forget it. A lot of people think that. So you could, right? If you don't do anything, it'll just automatically renew into the next year. You don't have to make any changes. But these plans change every year, especially people take expensive prescriptions. Drug form, each plan has its own drug formulary, and one insurance company can have 3 different plans. So you want to see how it's going to be treated. So this year might treat it one way. Come January, you treat it a different way. So it's really important, especially for prescription drugs, that you're taking a look at the plan and make sure that plan will work for you in the next year.
In your process, do you set that up with your client every year, or do they have to reach out to you because they have something changing, or how does that all go together?
Yeah. So I work with a lot of people. So what I do is I do an educational email to my clients in September saying it's that time of year. If your prescriptions have changed, if your health situation has changed, we should really reach out and schedule an appointment. And let's talk it through to make sure you're in the right plan for the following year, or if there's some other options available to you.
And now back to what I said earlier, does the plan change sometimes if, like I keep hearing once again, stereotyping that large corporations continue to change their benefits? I'm sure they change it for the retirees too.
Yeah.
So if they make a change, sometimes that puts this on a different course.
Right. Well, if I'm still working, I'm over 65 and I'm still working during open enrollment. If all of a sudden my employer changed my plan where it's cost prohibitive, I could say, okay, I don't want to go. I could still work full time, not go in the employer plan and enroll in Medicare and the secondary insurance. Some people choose to do that based on the cost of the health insurance, even as an employee. So a lot of people will do that. But plans will change. They have to file the plans every year. So they're filing them now for 2025. They change. Some of them change for the better. Some of them not so good. So it's important to, everyone will receive from the insurance company what they call an annual notice of change letter. And it's not a letter, it's a booklet. It's, it's large. So you really need to look at that, or you need to call me to make sure we go through it to say, okay, here's the big changes. Are you comfortable with them?
So people show up with the booklets when they come to meet with you.
The booklet and all the marketing material they get from all the different insurance companies and the other brokers, they usually come with a garbage bag full of mail.
That's so funny. So that's one of the questions I have is how many companies, like when you think of life insurance, for example, there's a few types, obviously, and there's 50 companies, 40 companies that you're looking at. And it's really only most of the time it's on certain products like term. It's just price really, because the benefit's pretty much the same. But how many companies do you have to work on? Is it 5 or is it 50?
It's a lot more than 5. If I look up in any one zip code, just on Medicare Advantage, which doesn't even include supplements and drug plans, just on Medicare Advantage, there could be anywhere from 29 to 65 options for them to select. So it's, there's a lot of analysis that goes into that and a lot of misunderstanding on their end on, what's there and what to look for.
Wow. It's interesting. When I think of the financial service industry, back in 2009, I was watching, there's a word in our industry for, people that are listening that are not in the industry. It's called wholesalers. And wholesalers work for major carriers and they come in and they help wholesale their product. Very simple. And in 2007, 8, and 9, I was just watching the landscape and I noticed there was a major paradigm shift in companies investing in those roles and not spending the money. And I said, wow, that's something we have to create here at Barnum, which we did. And, you were one of the first ones to come along in this specialty that you have. How did that work? Because you're dealing with your role, you're really dealing with the end user, which is the client. And you have clients of your own and many clients from advisors. And then back to what we said earlier, I'm an advisor. I'm working with my client and they're looking to move their assets to me and do all their insurance, but yet they're paralyzed by this. How does that work? And how do you partner with that advisor? And I almost feel like you're an extension of their org chart. There's very little cost for you, meaning on their thing, other than sharing in the client revenue. But how does that all work?
Yeah. So I find that a lot of brokers, a lot of teams will have me actually as part of their org chart. And any client, when they're talking about the financial planning model, especially those as they're aging into age 65, when you become eligible for Medicare in most cases, they're letting them know, hey, we have resources internally. And let's talk about it and let's get you educated on that. So we're doing a lot of one-on-one. So a lot of times the brokers will sit with me with their client meeting and they'll interject and they're actually learning at the same time, which is nice, so that they'll know enough to know a little bit more for the next time a client approaches them. And I don't think they are comfortable enough to educate their own clients or to enroll them, but they're educated enough to know when to bring me in and when I can answer questions for them.
Yeah, and that's probably the most important thing, because why specialize in that? If I'm a really good general practitioner and I'm a financial planner, but I'm running into these situations, it's really important. So that I know that I just have to know who to go to and have enough knowledge to at least get them to you.
Right. So I agree, because on the Medicare platform annually, we have to get certified by the government to be able to sell Medicare plans.
Yeah, and I know it's a lot of hours, right?
It's a lot of hours. And then each insurance company then requires that you do their certifications. So it's a tremendous amount of time and really the expertise. So if you want to sell 1 or 2 policies, it's not worth your time to study. If you're selling a lot of them or you're being a resource, like I feel like I am.
Becoming a specialist.
That then you do it and then you know that information. So you should really rely on a specialist, someone who does this every day.
So if I was an advisor sitting across from you right now and you said, you have your book and, many advisors know their A clients and B clients really well and C's and D's, okay. And they spend a lot of time working with their clients. When's the best time? Should they, anytime someone turns 63, should they introduce you? Should they wait till they retire? Like, how should they build that relationship with you to better suit their own clients?
It's probably when if they're meeting with their client and their client happens to be 63 or 64 years old, that's when they should let them know, hey, we have people in-house that could really help you, walk you through the process, educate you, and help enroll you. Because you want to let them know that we can do this before they try to do it on their own. So that's do a lot of clients do that today? They try to do it on their own? They try to do it on their own.
Wow.
And then I get the phone call after they do it and say, did I make a mistake? And it's a little late then, but yeah, a lot of people try to do it on their own, right? So we live in a society where there's so much at your fingertip. The problem is you do the wrong click and all of a sudden you have 300 people calling you saying, were you interested in this type of insurance? So you have to be really careful with that. You could do the research on your own, but it's not going to give you all the details. I've had people that did the research. My engineers and my teachers are big research people, right? They do a lot of that research and then I educate them. They said, but nowhere does it say it. I said, here it is. It's like, I've read so much and I never saw that. So again, that's why it really makes a difference not to do it by yourself, but to really work with someone who knows what they're doing.
And you run, like when I think of your practice right now, you run a lot of educational workshops too. So how does that all work?
Yeah, so I'm doing monthly webinars, right? So no matter where in the country you live, you can listen in on this webinar. And the idea with that is education. When do you do things so that there's not any penalty, so that you're aware of it? So that is a critical component of people. They're listening to their sister, they're listening to their brother, but their situation might be completely different. So they really have to personalize it. So that's what I try to do in the webinar. I'll go through multiple scenarios. Hopefully one will resonate with them. But if one doesn't, then they can set up an appointment with me and they can ask me their personal situation and say, how does this impact me?
Yeah. And you said something earlier that, thinking about some of the myths that are out there, you said in September for open enrollment, right? And, I know people in nature think when they go to work at a company, they go into open enrollment. That's when they enroll for their benefits. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be September, right? If I turn 65 in January, I need to do it prior to my birthday.
Correct. Right. So if you're applying and enrolled in Medicare Part A and B, regardless of what time of the year is, it's an event, right? So you're eligible for Medicare. So it's a qualifying event. Then let's say I retire in April and I'm 70 years old. That's another qualifying event. So you would do it at that point. But everyone who's enrolled throughout the year, September is that time frame where you can say, is that still the right plan for me for the following year?
That's when the new plans come out.
Correct.
Gotcha. So in your first year, it's going to be whenever, but then it's sort of like everyone's renewing all at once.
Correct. It's a busy time of the year.
Yeah. So let's talk about that now. So I know that, based on the size of your business and growing, you've taken a little bit of a step back to think about the business in a big way. And now we're starting to build a team, just like other financial advisors, and building people around you that can help you continue to service more clients. How's that working?
It's great to have some extra resources. So I've personally hired and trained my 3 employees, and they're able to be that first line of defense for a client. A client calls, they're overwhelmed. So they try to do the fact find with them and gather the information so that we could do the research and have an educated call our first time we have a conversation, which is great. Or if they have a billing problem, they call with the client and handle that. So it's nice to have extra resources because I'm in appointments seems like every 30 minutes every day. So it's a little hard for me to make those outgoing calls to do it, but I have a team of people to help me with that.
Wow. And has your business, we talked on a show earlier this week where, when COVID hit, huge challenge, lots of bad stuff that came of it. But one of the things that came of it was the ability to use Zoom and Teams and stuff, any kind of video conferencing. Has that opened up the rest of the country to you in terms of the amount of clients you can work with and the ability to do that?
It has, yeah. So the technology has been wonderful. I think COVID pushed it on us, but it's been great. And I laugh because some of my 85-year-old clients are more computer literate than my 65-year-old clients. But everyone pretty much has been on a Zoom call. They know how to do it. So we're able to do it electronically. And then, they can sign it electronically and submit the application. We do the Zoom calls. I share my computer screen to educate them and let them know for their personal situation what might be some options for them.
Yeah, and does it matter? Is it state specific in terms of some of the regs and the laws that you have to deal with?
Not only state specific, it's by service area. So a different zip code. Mm-hmm.
So you have to know that stuff.
So I'm in Connecticut, it's easy. We have one.
Yeah.
There's not very much in the service. On the Medicare Advantage, there's certain plans, but drug plans, it's pretty much open. But you get into a big state like Texas or California, there's so many plans, so many smaller regional plans as well as larger plans. There's a lot out there.
So it's interesting. One of the things that I learned early on in my career, and I tried to, as a leader, teach it was, there's only really two ways to grow your business, right? You could see more people or sell bigger cases. And for the people that know me, I think it's my first time saying it on the show. We're almost coming up on our first year, but it's really simple. See more, sell bigger. What I learned is it's very hard to just wake up and find wealthy clients, right? It just doesn't happen overnight that you go from, this market to that market, and to sell sell bigger, it was really to build lots of products in the household as specialists. And this becomes Medicare, Medicaid becomes one of the products in the household, but it was also to build a wall around our clients and not to let, someone else in that's ultimately going to try to, many of my listeners are saying, if you don't have Medicare, I'm going to get in for the Medicare and then do the rest. So I do believe that there was a lot of firms that were focused on, people that were like you, but a big firm. And now they're realizing, all right, well, if I already have them for this, I should go after the other products there in the household and be a competitor to all the other people that left that on the sideline. Are you starting to see that out there?
Definitely starting to see that. There's a lot of loyalty, which is nice, that they want to work with one person, one firm, one team, and that they prefer to work with someone in-house on the team versus having to find different resources for different products.
But if you don't have the skill sets locally, or they don't have someone like you, they can't do that. And I think of the old days of you saying, and like I said, I haven't been in the field in a long time, but you should go see, I met with Sue down the street and you should go see Sue, but then Sue is referring her stuff to a financial advisor. Is that like...
You could lose control of your client base, right?
Pretty quickly.
Right. So if you send someone out to another agency to write their auto insurance, well, guess what? A lot of the auto carriers now, they're selling life insurance. They're selling a lot of these other products. So yeah, you want to build that moat around your client to say, hey, we have all these resources. You could take advantage of them. You could go outside, but take advantage of them. Then it's one team, one.
And by the way, I do think, I come from the world of holistic planning, and I think you should be looking at everything. But if you look at it and then don't do anything, I think that's really dangerous too. So what's next for you?
So it's busy. There's a lot of people turning 65 every day. So my phone is ringing nonstop, and I love helping people. I mean, that's, I think, why I love this job so much is I love people. And
you can tell.
So we want to make sure that we take care of all these people. So I can't talk to every single person every time. So we're looking to have more resources, more people educated and certified to be able to help on the Medicare sales, and take a look at that and grow from there and get expertise so that maybe there's one person who specializes in Illinois, another person who specializes in California, to really help with that. But overall, having, again, a big team all working together.
But it sounds like as we try to push financial advisors to become financial doctors, it seems like with the team you've built around you, that's kind of starting to happen for you, where you have that infrastructure behind you and you're the face and the front person, but there's a lot behind you to help with the clients. There
has to be, because it'd be impossible for me to work any more than I'm working. So it's important that they do I have people that prep the files, right? Who prep the client. And then I do the education. And then when we do the follow-up, we have people to take care of that also.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know I'm diverting a little bit, but it just popped in my mind. I know that there was some new regs that came out this year that you guys have to follow, which made it even more difficult, correct?
It is. So unfortunately, a lot of brokers, a lot of these television commercials, people are calling and they're enrolling in plans that they don't even realize they enrolled in. So out of safety So
meaning they see this thing on daytime TV, they call up, they enroll, and then what happens?
And they made a mistake. They weren't trying to enroll in that plan. And all of a sudden they're enrolled in a new plan. Their child comes over to the house and says, "What is this? What did you do?" It's a problem. So what they've done now is it's a requirement to record every single phone call.
Wow.
So it's pretty time consuming to go through.
And is it a phone call of one that they're just calling into you, like with a question, or is it a phone call where, you set up a meeting to talk about the plan?
It's a phone call of setting up a meeting and talking about the plan.
So when you're actually in a presentation, you have to set that up.
Correct. So if someone calls to ask me a question, we have to have them sign a compliance form saying the scope of what we'll talk about is these Medicare plans, so that I can't sell them anything else, right? So I can only talk about that. And then I have to record that phone call so that if they ever say, it's a protection for them and for me, I guess, if they ever say, "Well, you didn't tell me that." Well, we have a recorded phone call.
And I get it. I mean, I guess I'm asking more, but I'm just more curious now. Like, when you're doing it over Zoom or something, there's technology actually to do that. But when you're in a face-to-face meeting, what do you do? Like put a recording?
The nice thing is when you're face-to-face, they're not making the same requirements. So I don't have to record those phone calls.
Got it. It's only when you're over
the phone or over Zoom.
Because I guess what happened is because some of these big multi-level firms never go see anyone. So there's and that's why you just cleared something up for me.
Yeah. So that's, I like the face-to-face because then I'll have to record it.
I got you. I guess my last question is, if I'm a financial advisor today, why would I not use someone like you as a specialist to help all my clients, to build a wall around them, to make sure that they're covered properly so they don't lose all their assets that they worked hard for, or their home or anything like that? Am I missing something?
They should definitely be using me for lots of reasons, right? So I have the expertise. I've been studying this. I've been doing this for quite a few years. So I have that expertise. But, I've been in the insurance business since the 1990s. And this is the most highly referable business I've ever seen. So if I sell someone, chances are they're going to refer me to 10 more people.
Yeah.
So, Paul, if you introduce me to someone, you're going to get compensated a referral fee on all those new people. Plus, I'm going to say, "Hey, are you also working with Paul for financial planning?" So I've been able to bring back to a lot of the advisors and say, "Here's a new opportunity for you to take advantage of." So not only are you a hero for your client in doing that, you might bring some more business to yourself.
Yeah. And let's not miss what you just said. So because you've worn so many hats in your career and understand true planning for clients, you're playing in one space now. But when you get referred, like my mom, I know you worked with my mom, and she probably refers you 10 people a year herself.
She does.
Right. And then you now send those off to a financial advisor that referred her to you.
Correct.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So there's a lot of opportunity for other sales, right? So sales planning, to take care of people. Because a lot of times they'll come to me because they're retiring And I'll say to them, well, what are you doing with your 401k? I said, are you talking to someone? Like, no. And I said,
get this done first.
Yeah, I want to get this done first. And I said, well, that's great, but you need to know which bucket of money to take your money out first.
Yep.
Have you looked at that? They said, no. So it is important for them to, what is the thing that people plan for a vacation, right?
They'll spend more time
planning a vacation than planning retirement. So it's important to remind them, hey, you have to look at this. And if you need help, I have some people to introduce you to.
And maybe even be doing that stuff simultaneously. So, well, listen, thank you. I'm sure that there's many people out there that are thinking, what am I doing? I'm not using a specialist like you if they have one in their own firm, or they can reach out to you. And, small steps, big wins was really built on the premises of exactly what you did, right? You started in this space and then you just kept taking little steps. And now it's a huge business, multiple staff around you, building more specialists around you. And the coolest part about this whole thing is the amount of lives that you're impacting on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Paul.
You got it. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.